What's up, everybody? This is the Rabid Hedgehog, and welcome to another wonderful discussion about our favorite industry. So, when it comes to the end of July into August, you get a lot of things for these big manufacturers. You get your Q2 results for sales. You get the announcements that usually comes up around Sturgis for Polaris and Indian Motorcycle, and then you get at the end of the month you get Harley-Davidson and their big dealers meeting. And these guys are the ones that are going to be setting the trend for the next few months, and we get to see the new models and everything coming out. So what we're going to do is we're going to start kind of discussing the state of the American motorcycle manufacturers, because there's two of them. They both just did their Q2 results last week with both strikingly different numbers. Let's kind of dig into that here for just a moment. So Harley-Davidson has taken a bad browbeating when it comes to this quarter, with 20% decline, marking $5,000 less on the books in terms of shipments is what they're now expecting. 15,000 less motorcycles altogether year over year by the end of the year, which that's quite a bit of motorcycles that are not being shipped and sold. And a lot of people say that us, the millennials, people that are born from 84 to 94, 95, depending on where your choices are, or 81 even sometimes, as they go all the way to 81 to like 95, 96. It really depends on who you're looking at. But they're saying that we are the ones that are kind of killing Harley-Davidson off and killing the motorcycle industry as a whole. Well, I hate to say this, we're not. A lot of millennials actually do ride motorcycles. We have 4 of them here. We have my wife's Indian Scout. We have my MGX 21 Moto Guzzi. We have our Honda CB1100 and the CX500C as well, in 1979. So that's what we have in the garage currently, and we love lots of different motorcycles. If I had more money to play with, then I'd have like a garage just full of them. And I love riding. I love the aspects of getting out there. I love long-range touring, but I love commuting with the motorcycles. I like motorcycles that allow me to get out there and commute and get to work and back easier than in a car, cheaper than a car. And I maintain them myself. I do all the chain maintenances and oil changes and lubrications and all that fun stuff. The only thing I won't do is ABS if it is on the bike, because you have to pulse the box, so because I don't have a computer to do that. So when it comes to brake bleeding, it's the only thing I won't do. But when it comes down to it, millennials are not killing this industry at all. Look at Yamaha, look at Kawasaki, look at Suzuki, look at Royal Enfield, look at Triumph, look at BMW. Look at the people who have adapted to the market. And that's where you're going to see why Harley-Davidson is getting beaten and not being paid attention to by millennials, is because they're not adapting to what we're going for. Generally, a millennial is looking for a motorcycle $10,000 or less. They don't care about CC range, but there's been a big influx in terms of motorcycles that are 500cc or less. Because we've seen the rise of the micro bikes, we've seen the Monkeys, the Groms, the Z125 Pros, we've seen the 250s resurgence, we've seen the 500 resurgence. So you see like Honda making the CB 500, you see them making CB600s, CB300s. You see kind of a range around 500 to 600 to somewhere less, but you also see that price range not getting above 10,000. And that's the problem with Harley-Davidson, is that what they gave us in that range is worthless. They gave us the street rod, the Street 750 and the Street 500, and when you go against, say, a Yamaha FT or MT-07, excuse me, I've almost mixed FZ and MT there, but MT-07 and MT-09, those particular motorcycles, they cost the same as the Street 750, the FZ-07 or MT-07, depending on what year you're buying. The Street 750, $7,599 for MSRP, the FZ MT-07 is the same price, and that is a way better motorcycle. You get a motorcycle that's way more dynamic, way more comfortable. The bike is able to turn in both directions without scraping a pipe. It's symmetrical. It just works. It's a great built bike that also gets superior fuel economy as well, and it's just easier to use. And it's a lot more fun. I mean, let's face it, the Street Series, the only thing I really love about the Street is the engine itself. The transmission is wonky sometimes, and the chassis is absolutely just garbage. I mean, it works in a left-hand turn. It doesn't work in a right-hand turn. The way they have the wheels set up, it is a decent bike, but it's just marginal. And that's the whole thing. It's not exciting. The MT-07 is better built, way more exciting. The MT-09, why I mentioned it, is it costs the same as the Sportsters up there near $9,000. And the Sportster is completely archaic. I mean, even if you get a 1200cc Sportster, it doesn't touch the MT-09 in power or fun or ability. So you look at that, just those two alone, not to mention the Z900, not to mention the Z400s that have come out, not to mention some of these other things, the Z650s and stuff that go all in that range that are less price or same, that perform better. And that's what we're looking for, is something that's bang for our buck. We're not necessarily looking for a big dresser with tons of chrome or a lot of extra weight for no reason. We're looking for a good motorcycle that allows us to get out there and have fun and do it reliably, and maybe even take to a track, because we like doing this stuff. You know, and another thing is the used market is on fire right now, but it's also bloated with used Harleys at the same time, which is kind of messing with values everywhere. And that's just because simply we even ignore the used Harleys, because Harley-Davidson is not desirable because they haven't adapted yet. And that's what the market is showing, is they have simply failed to adapt to the new market, whereas BMW released even a 310cc bike. Sure, they actually tasked India to make it, you know. They didn't make it in Germany. They made it in a different country to make it less priced, to bring it in, and to get in there under the 5,000 mark with a decent bike. So you look at how they adapted. You look at Moto Guzzi. You have their versions, their V7s, V9s. All of them are mostly under $10,000. And you get a really good built motorcycle that comes in with ABS, with traction control systems, and, you know, nice little features and stuff like that that just simply don't exist on Harley-Davidson without adding a pretty penny to them and making them far more expensive than the alternatives. The V7 will outrun any Sportster. It doesn't matter if it's the 883 or the 1200; it's going to outrun it. And even the V9, it's a decent motorcycle as well. It'll do the same thing, and it's all for less money. And that's the whole thing. You look at Triumph making the different versions of their Bonneville with the Street Cups and the Street Twins and stuff like that, starting at 900cc, liquid cooling them, making them look cool, making them look retro, charging around $10,000 or less, and what do you know? They're posting profits as well. Millennials are in the market. We're there. We're buying. It's just simply not carrying over to Harley-Davidson, because the three technical offerings they have in that range are darn near worthless. If you throw in the Sportster series, they have 10 altogether, because you have, you know, 7 different Sportsters, 3 different streets. There's no point to having all that redundancy, in my opinion, with Harley-Davidson. If Harley-Davidson wants to help cost-cutting measures for their next upcoming quarters and stuff, it's time to look at redundancy and take care of it, because you got 36 models out there. You're not doing well. You're only getting 200,000 bikes out, and everybody else is starting to catch you, and that's not a good thing. So you're looking at Harley fall because they're not adapting. It's also because they left a generation behind. When we looked at things like, let's talk about the V-Rod, for instance, back in the early 2000s when it came out, you know, that was supposed to be the bike that simply walked away from the loyalists, that walked away from the air cool, the big chrome, and all that other stuff. That was a liquid cooled, small displacement, high horsepower, modern motorcycle. And it's just the Harley loyalists dogged it, and so did their salespeople, because the whole thing is, it was supposed to be marketed to the younger. That's what they showed on their commercials. They had the girl riding up and filling up next to this old guy at a gas station for less money and all that stuff. And, they had all that marketing like that. But when they changed the salespeople were told that that bike targeted a group of males that were upper echelon in their 40s and just affluent men that wanted to buy a motorcycle. That's actually what the Harley-Davidson training tape said. I actually got to see this tape, and that's why I know. Because when I worked for one of the dealers, they showed us everything from way back when to now. And it stuns you, because when you think about when it came out, when you're in your 40s at that time, you were at the tail end of the baby boomers. So you didn't even reach back to the brand new riders who would have been in their later 20s or 30s, called Generation X. And those poor people got left completely behind by Harley-Davidson, because all they wanted to do was follow their loyal baby boomers that wanted the big dressers and wanted the big motorcycles, big chrome, big noise, and big everything. So everybody else started catering to Generation X, because Generation X was known as the extreme generation. That's where we got the extreme sports like Tony Hawk and his skateboarding and all that other stuff. So Harley completely ignores this generation, gets passed up by it, and of course Generation X is mostly raising the Millennials. That's the general age, because they started in '63. So when the 80s come around and the Millennials were being born, it's Generation X parents. I'm one of the rare individuals where my parents were both boomers. I was born way later in life for them, and I had a heart for Harley-Davidson because my family had Harley-Davidson. My first bike was a Sportster, and then I went on to have 6 Harley-Davidsons altogether, ending with the V-Rod, but having the big twin Dynas and stuff like that in between. But the thing is after I started this channel and getting to know more motorcycles and riding more motorcycles and understanding the industry more, part of it working for Harley-Davidson's dealer network and learning more than I needed to know, I've gotten away from Harley just because they don't understand us. They want to sell a lifestyle. And that's the one thing that just doesn't work with us. We don't believe in the leather-clad camaraderie and all that stuff. Most millennials are pretty much, kind of on our own. We just want to be able to ride and enjoy and have fun. All my millennial friends that ride generally ride alone. We don't ride in groups as often as most people. And it's just simply because we express ourselves in our solidarity, in a sense, I guess is the best way to say it. Because we've been, kind of around all this social media and all that, but we also came from a time that didn't have it, so we're a hybrid. We're socialized, but yet we want solidarity, and that's what we use our motorcycles for. So when it comes to those big dressers and all this other stuff, and Indian has the same problem too, we don't necessarily care about all that. We don't care about big bikes, big noise, big chrome, big all that. We want a bike that we can just simply commute on and have a good time and just let the world fly by. And you look at Harley-Davidson's numbers, and that shows that, while you look at everybody else's catching up. You look at Triumph having multiple years of records. You look at BMW having multiple years of records now. Everybody else is growing, and except for a couple here and there, like Indian, for instance. We'll talk about them real quick. Their motorcycles are down too by somewhere around 8-9%. They said high single digits. It didn't actually give us a solid number, but a lot of that was brought down by Slingshot. That brand is not doing as well as it once was, and Indian is starting to take off, and for the most part sales and profits and everything on Indian were up on slightly down sales. And the biggest reason for that is massive overseas suddenly picking up because of the FTR. Also the US picking up because of the FTR as well, which proves that millennials and buyers will go a little bit upscale to get bang for their buck, because with the FTR, you're starting at $13,499 and you're getting a V-twin motorcycle, 123 horsepower, roughly 80 foot-pounds of torque. You have ABS going to be standard on it, and you're also going to have cruise control, just all in that bike right there and then. Better suspension and really cool looking ride. And then you have the Sportster over here being all archaic with barely 70-ish horsepower, maybe, and 79 foot-pounds of torque and nothing else. You have to add the ABS. You have to do all this stuff. Sure, the Sportster starts at $11,299 for their highest one, but when you add in the rest of the options to catch up, you're literally within a couple $100. And for us, the more power, the cruise control, and everything else that comes with the base is worth it to skip that Sportster. And in many cases, going up to the race edition to have the little touchscreen, to have the ride modes, to have everything else, it's worth to even upgrade another $1,000 or two, because that one has premium features. It has things on it such as the tilt sensitive traction control ABS systems and all that fun stuff too. It actually has premium type accessories and features that Harley says they have when they're charging you that price, but in reality it's just a basic bike. And that's another thing we're looking at, is we're looking at the features and benefits of these two brands. And to be honest, when it comes like the FTR versus Sportster or Scout versus Sportster, because I mean, the Sportster is just, it's archaic 5-speed, no liquid cooling and all this other stuff, where the Scout has liquid cooling, more horsepower, USB ports on it now, starting in 2019. Other things, you see adaptation coming from Polaris, whereas you don't see it coming from Harley-Davidson. You see them announcing it, you see them saying that they're going to do it, and they announce that they're going to make 250cc bikes and stuff, and then you find out it's overseas only. You know, you guys got to bring this to the United States, because that's where our demographic is right now, and you just got to adapt. I understand that your loyalists and stuff keeps that massive juggernaut from turning, but it's time to cut the anchor. It's time to cut the loyalist anchor out and just turn around. And that way you guys start developing those smaller bikes for the U.S. and keep going. I mean, we don't necessarily have to be brand loyal. We don't necessarily have to be country loyal. I mean, I'd love to keep American motorcycles American, but if BMW even steps out to have stuff in India, or Honda steps out for Thailand, or Triumph steps up for Taiwan or Thailand, you know, you look at all these other manufacturers that do go around the world to have certain bikes made to help cut those costs, to help make a margin, to make a good quality bike still in the long run that we are wanting to ride. So that's the thing. Harley does need to learn to globalize a little bit. And I understand that they have the other plants out there. They have India, they have Brazil. They're working on the plant in Thailand, or Taiwanese plant. I can't remember which one right now. But that's the whole thing. They are going about doing that, but mostly to avoid tariffs and stuff like that. And that way they have a local, easier market, because their market internationally has sunk too, because they just simply don't have any output out there right now, because most of it's coming from York here in America, York, Pennsylvania. So you look at everything that's going around, and you look at the possible future, because we're coming up, like I said, on Sturgis. So we know that Indian's going to be announcing what has been deemed the Raptor because of some names, and heaven forbid that bike be named the Raptor. And the Indian needs to go back and touch one of their classic names and call it the Blackhawk or something like that. But the fixed fairing liquid cooled bike, I can't wait to see it. I hope it comes out during Sturgis, so that way we can all get a good look at it. And I hope it's on one of the demo trucks shortly after that, or at a dealer very quickly, so that way I can get my paws on it and ride it, because I want to see. And that's the thing, is that Indian is about to put the last nail in the coffin of competition for Harley-Davidson as well, because they've got the FTRs, which is in a class of their own. They don't have anything to fight the street, because they don't need to. The street is that worthless to the rest of the market that they don't even want to fight it. There's no point. It just doesn't sell. So they know it. So you go up to the Sportster Fighting Scout, which is way better. You go up to the cruisers, which is kind of interesting, is that they got rid of most of their cruisers. They got rid of most of their Chief line and just went with the Chief Dark Horse. That's one thing I like about Indian, is that they cut some of the trash out that just doesn't sell. They don't sit there and sell 36 different models with many redundancies. So they took out a lot of the Chiefs and just went with the Dark Horse. So you have the cruiser line that takes care of the Softails. I know there's a million Softails, but they only have one cruiser. And of course you move up to the touring line for Indian, where you have the Vintage, which is kind of Chief base, and then you go up to the Chieftain base, Springfields, and the Chieftains and the Roadmasters and all that fun stuff. But all those bikes tend to sell, and they even come. I mean, some of them are a little bit more expensive. I know Street Glides start in the 21,000s, and the Chieftain, the cheapest one, is in 22,000. But you're still getting a motorcycle that has the radio and the ride modes, and it doesn't have ride command on the base Chieftain, but it does have the big touchscreen still. It still has most of the features. It still has the power window. It still has everything that they don't have on the Street Glide, which the Street Glide, once again, doesn't start with ABS. So when you start pricing it with everything that it has to catch up, it's more expensive. Whereas the Chieftain starts a little bit higher, but already has it. So that's kind of the give or take with it. You look at the fact that you can option out a lesser, or you can just buy this one that has everything. So that's kind of where we stand right now, is that Indian, yeah, some of the prices are slightly higher here and there because the Springfield's slightly higher than the Road King, but once again, ABS and stuff like that is coming standard. And you just look at that. So Harley really, in the future, needs to do something about their redundancies. Like even Indian with the Roadmaster Classic, the one that had the leather top case and the leather saddlebags, sold for 1 year and they cut it because it just wasn't worth anything, and they knew it. That's the whole thing, and they knew it. So they got rid of it, and that's what I like about Indian. They see that it's not doing anything, and they go ahead and adapt to it. So we see that Harley's, of course, built all these Softails. There's like 10 of them running around by themselves, because you got the Street Bob, the Lowrider, the Slim. Then you jump up to the Fat Bob. It's going to kind of get a little bit hard to name all these. Sport Glide, Heritage, Breakout, FXDR. So you do literally have 10 different models of Softail. In reality, they can do it with maybe 3 or 4. Because let's face it, the Street Bob is a worthless setup in terms of how it's done. I prefer the Slim, so they need to take the Street Bob out, slap in the Slim. The only reason the Street Bob sells as well as it does is because it's entry level. It's because of the price. So switch off what your entry level is, and that will sell more. It's not anything to do with the style, it's the price when it comes to Harley-Davidson, because people will automatically take this Street Bob and put the forward controls on it, lower the bar, or raise the bar. Everything gets changed like that. So if you start them with a different frame, they're just going to do the same thing. It's not going to be any different. So take the Slim, put it where the Street Bob is. Lowrider, great name, been around a long time. It's done. There's nothing special about it. Buckhorns and mid-mounts, just scratch that model. Instead, take the Fat Bob and move it into that place in terms of pricing. There's nothing special about the Fat Bob. It's just a big wheeled, either can have the 107, 114 engine. Knock its price down. There's no point in charging the amount of money you're charging for it. It doesn't have anything special. Then, when it comes down to the rest of it, you can do the Heritage Softail. Get that next with the soft bags, and make it less than the Sport Glide, because it doesn't make sense for a motorcycle to have soft bags and cost more money than one with hard bags and a hard fairing. That just makes no sense to me as well. And last but not least, you can get rid of the Breakout. You can get rid of the Fat Boy. I know those are big names and they've been around a long time, but they're redundant to each other to the FXDR. So keep the FXDR or keep the Fat Boy, whichever one's got the better name. You don't need the rest of them. And you can move those prices down because you're not trying to maintain as many models. I know a lot of it's just parts bin. I mean, literally, there's no reason for you to charge the prices you got because you're literally using the front end off this one or the back end off this one or this one's suspension and that one. You just mix and match the whole thing and you make a motorcycle. There's no reason for your prices to be outlandish in the Softail market. They can stay anywhere from 12 to 15 without an issue. Maybe boost up the FXDR to 17, but maybe the Sport Glide because they at least have ABS and cruise control and stuff. But I don't know why you're charging near $23,000 for a bike with nothing. Like literally, there's nothing to it. So what's the point of that? And then you get into the touring line, which seriously is just way too overstuffed. I mean, you start out with the Electra Glide. Nowadays the standard, and it has no radio, no nothing, for $18,900. Well, That's stupid. I'm sorry to say, that's really stupid. And for some reason, the Road King costs more. So I'm sorry, you need to flip that around, and we need to make the Road King the base. You don't need the Road King Special. You don't need that redundancy. You don't need a stripped down bike. Here's what you really need to do. You just need to do Road King. You need to do Street Glide. You need to do Road Glide. And you need your 2 Ultras. That's all you need. And then what you do is that you keep a few of them optioned out. And this is what car dealers do. You can do this yourself, Harley-Davidson, and maybe save you some money. But you can just keep a few of the lower option ones out there and a couple of the higher ones. But for the most part, a serious Harley-Davidson buyer wants to order it the way they want it. So that way, if they want everything up to the CVO line, they can start with the Street Glide and click all the boxes. If they don't, then they just order it a la carte. They're willing to wait a couple of weeks for it to come in. I guarantee you that. Because they would like it the way they want it. Right out of the box for what they paid immediately. That's all we want from you, Harley-Davidson. Is a bike that is the way we want it, out of the box, and a decent price. We don't want to get a motorcycle that is not powerful enough until after we add $5,500 to $8,000 worth of work to it just to make the power of a Honda Goldwing. It's very stupid. So that's where we need to be at with Harley-Davidson, is they need to adapt by allowing us to choose our price values. And also, when you take those bikes down line like that, you start the Road King at 17, you start the Street Glide at 18, you start the Road Glide at 19, and you start the Ultras at 20. And all you gotta do from there is literally check the boxes, and then you can make it the way you want it, color and all. People would like that, actually. And they can even select the engine, stuff like that. So it's all done at the factory. And it's all guaranteed to have a warranty. Because a lot of people get blindsided about a dealership by doing these kits. And their warranty is gone. And they weren't told that because they thought that as a dealership did it, the warranty is fine. I can tell you as an experienced person from there, it's not the case. You lose your warranty. So wouldn't it be nice to order a la carte your 117 kit for your basic Street Glide, but you didn't want everything else? You just wanted the power? And then you got a factory warranty because that's where it's coming from. That'd be beautiful. That'd be wonderful. That's what we would actually like. It's just kind of nice because we like the bang for the buck, or we like the choice. One of the two. If we're going to spend extravagantly, we want a say in it. Another thing about Millennials. If we're going to do that, we want a say in it. And I mean, that's the thing. Indian, yeah, they can do the same thing. They can pare down a few of their different models because they do have kind of redundancy on the Chieftains. Because they have the Chieftain Dark Horse, but the Chieftain Elite and Limiteds and stuff like that, a lot of those cross over. So they can pare down a few of those, especially since they're adding in the Blackhawk, because I don't want to call it Raptor. Seriously, Blackhawk is way better, guys. Listen, please, Blackhawk. Anyway, so we look at that and we look toward this future of seeing these new models about to come out. But I just wanted to make a suggestion. I know that we got the modular platform coming out here pretty soon from Harley-Davidson. I'm expecting very big announcements at the end of August for that. And to be honest, I don't think the street platform nor the Sportster platform will survive the modular. Because it's very obvious that, to me, the way they've named it Street Fighter is it's like calling it Street Rod. Street Fighter is going to be the Street Series, the Fighter. So like Street Series, the Rod, or Street Rod, Street Fighter, Street 750, Street 500. I believe those bikes will be around, but on this new chassis, because the engine has been confirmed to be able to go 500 cc's to 1250. So you're looking at it spanning all the Street Series and all the Sportster Series. So seriously, they can make a 500 cc variant, a 750 cc variant, and a 900 cc variant, and they can do away with the Street Rod. They can go ahead, or they can make a 1250 Street Rod and make it something special. That'd be pretty cool. So that's how they can do it. They can do that and make it that work that way. But that's why I believe it's called Street Fighters, because it's going to be street line, but the fighter. And that's kind of my logic to the way Harley usually works. And of course, the Sportster. When it's time to redo the Sportster, I mean, the thing hasn't been touched barely in 62 years. So it's time to see them probably take what looks like the custom model and probably put an 800cc or 900cc variant in one and 1200 in the other. It's okay to do that, but just have like maybe two entry-level Sportsters with 900s, and then 2 1250 models. Don't try to make 10 Sportsters or 7 Sportsters. That's too many. Just take care of your redundancies, and when you do the modular platform, and then you can, of course, you have your 3 or 4 possible street models: the new 500, the new 750, the Fighter, and the Rod. And then you have the couple of Sportsters, and then you have the Pan America series. So you've pared down some of that so you can fit these in there, and hopefully you get some business off of these. Because the biggest thing is unlike with the Livewire, where you completely screwed the pooch on range and price, making these things near $30,000, you need to make these bikes fit where we are. We need to see these bikes anywhere from $6,000 to maybe $12,000 to $13,000, $14,000 at the most in that new line. We do not need to see them go any further north. You're not that premium. I mean, you guys are probably not going to make these with fun systems and all that other stuff to add to traction controls and ABS and cruise controls on these little bikes. So don't price yourself out of that, because you got to remember the Japanese market is still out there with the modes and everything else and the electronic traction controls and all that for the same price. So if you're going to go higher, put the stuff on there that needs to be there. For Indian, I believe Indian with the FTR is about as radical as they can go, but they still have the anchor, the boat weight, whatever you want to call it, known as the slingshot, that they can get rid of. And if they get rid of that development and get rid of all that, it's time to bring back the Victory name with Victory motorcycles that are bikes that are standards and it's kind of sporty. So a V-twin American sport bike ranging from 500 to 1200 cc, maybe 1250 cc, 1300, somewhere in there. But that would be very fun to see Victory come back with a line that is affordable and all under 10 grand with that nice wide of range. I think that would work. That way Indian has its chance to stay classic looking, to stay the premium brand, and Victory can be the everyday brand, the everyman brand. Everybody works toward Indian kind of thing. So that's just my thoughts on how everything's going, why the market looks the way it does here in the U.S. It's not because we're not buying. It's just simply because Harley doesn't want to adapt to us, or even Generation X. Generation X didn't get a bike that they wanted. They would have loved the ADVs. That's where they all are now. So you look at how they didn't adapt until now. All they need to do is do a little bit of change and get rid of some redundancy and stuff like that. I want to see 2 strong American brands. I'd love to see Polaris bring Victory back. That way we have 3 strong American brands. I want to see healthy competition. So that way they all keep each other in check and balances, and that way we can all enjoy riding what we want to ride and have a good time. So at any rate, if you have any other things to add, put them in the comments below, as long as it's polite. I mean, there's no reason to be hateful about this. It's just opinions, but it's just something to start a discussion. We can be civil about it, right? So anyway, I'd like to thank Law Tigers once again for picking us up and sponsoring us. We appreciate their help with that. If you have any accidents or injuries, they are nationwide. They are, of course, here in Oklahoma as well. They do not chase ambulances. They wait for you to call, but they're also in our community helping. And once again, thank you, Doug, over there at USA Synthetics. We appreciate you guys. They help supply the oils for our motorcycles. I just got the first service done on my Moto Guzzi, and he put that AMS oil in it, so we're good to go on that. More bikes to come on that, but excellent oil. Go ahead and get that stuff. I've seen it works really good. And then, of course, Derek Enloe Insurance. If you're looking for any sort of homeowners, life insurance, motorcycles, cars, boats, anything like that, if you're in the state of Oklahoma, give him a call. All the links and all the contacts are going to be in the description. At any rate, keep that shiny side up, folks, and we'll catch you on that next video.